Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all the books I have read during the months of October and November. But before we start, remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this channel is the perfect place for you. So leave a like if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bells if you want to see more videos like this. The first book I'm going to mention is Eclipse by Herman Steuernagel. It is a space opera. It is short and sweet and very good. I think it clocks around 290 pages. And it follows two main perspectives. One is Django and the other one is Mika. In this first book of a trilogy, Django makes a very calm life. I wouldn't say it is easy, because you'll see by going on with the story that there is a pretty hard and harsh class conflict going on in a space station when he leaves. He's helping rebuild life on Earth. What he produced and the plants he is caring for, they will be sent on Earth to rebuild the environment on the planet, because something happened that made Earth inhabitable. So he has this quiet life, but you can feel that somehow the society that he lives in forced on him this kind of quiet demeanor, and that makes it so much more hard-hitting when his naivete gets stripped away from him, and he starts to have to change perspective on the life he's going through. So all of his relationships change. He's the girl he likes and that he never had the courage to say that he loves her. His relationship with his family, everything changed very quickly and very dramatically, and he has to take a few very important decisions about his future. Everything shifts, everything changes so fast that you can actually feel how shocked he is, and you can imagine pretty clearly yourself how the amount of information and change and lies that he discovers who actually destroy his peace of mind. And I think it is a very well-rounded character. Having a character being so naive is a very smart choice, because it allows us to understand and get to know the world building in a way, because everything he knows, it is true to a certain point. And the way he discovers the actual truth, it is the same way we discover the actual truth. And when the first plot twist hits, it hits us in the face like a truck in the same way it hits Django. So it is a very interesting perspective, and it is nice to see how different it is from the other one, from Mika, which is a former pirate, now a captain of a commercial ship. She has a completely different demeanor and a very different attitude toward life. She is bitter. Something happened that made all her past decision come back and bite her in the butt. So she has that kind of an attitude from someone that has seen a lot in her life and has gone through so much struggle, and now he faces life with kind of a sadness, but she's very matter of fact. And then her inciting incident is that she's forced to respond to a distress call, and in that moment she makes a very questionable decision, because you'll see that that decision is guided by her morals, and that It is right from that point of view, but it is extremely dangerous, and that it could destroy the peace of mind that she reached, even if she is that bitter about her past. And it is nice the way her internal struggle guides her all of her decisions, and it is very nice to see how those two very different perspectives and being basis of the rest of the story, because the book ends on a very very painful cliffhanger and giving you a few other very hard-hitting plot twists, but in a way it is the end of that section of a story for both the lives of those two characters. I will say that it is a very good read. It is very effective. By now you know that I am a very character-driven reader, so if the plot is good, I'm happy. If we have a few hard-hitting plot twists, I'm even more happy. But I am on the moon if we have a good character developments. Now, the book is short, so there's not that much screen time to have a very deep character development, and that short book is split actually in two because you have two perspectives. So we don't have that much space to have an amazing character development. But Little Cat, it is effective, and you can see that there is room to make those characters breathe and grow and have even more introspection and even more development in those other books. I will say that under 300 pages, the author made a very good job in delivering us character development, plot, and some plot twists with a understandable world building that gives you exactly what you need to go on with the story, and something missing so that you actually want to see more, that you're eager to go on with the rest of the story. So it is a very good book. I finished it in a couple of days. It reads beautifully. It is written in a very competent way. It is very enjoyable, and I suggest you to give it a try. Then we have The Forsaken Planet by Brian Wilson. This is a mix between fantasy and science fiction. We can call it science fantasy with a bit of a space opera vibe. It was a very interesting read and a pretty compelling one. To be honest, I had a few issues with the introductory part of the story, and the author was so patient and so nice listening to my ramblings, because around the 15%, 20% of the book I was not sure that this book was for me, but I wanted to help. I want to give this book a review because I like to support new author, especially when they are having their first book published. So I didn't have exactly time to write down an email, so I sent him a plethora of voice notes on Instagram. So he decided not to block me and to listen to my voice note and kindly reply, giving me his take. But let's take a step back. I'll give you a general setting with no spoilers, of course. So we have a alien invasion, basically. But the original side of this trope is that it is not actually an alien invasion, because they're humans invading Earth. Because in the world building for this series, Earth is not the only planet inhabited by human beings. Of course, we don't know that there are other planets inhabited by human beings, and they're part of this intergalactic empire. We are the last wheel on the chart because we are the last evolved technologically. All the other planets, they have much more control of technology, and they use a particular ability is called Solara or Solera, I don't know how you pronounce it in English, which is basically space magic like the Force, but it is a little bit more structured. You have so much more rules for use this kind of energy that permeates the universe and resides inside everything, even objects. So it is not quite mystical as the Force, but it is not like the biotics from Mass Effect. It is kind of in the middle, and a huge portion of the books it is centered on the main character learning to master the use of this energy. So at the beginning of the book, there is the leader of a faction that decides that invading Earth is a good thing because he wants to prove a point and to show to the other leaders that by doing something special on Earth, you'll see what in the book, he will show that he is the chosen one. So he goes and invades Earth. This huge invading force wreaks havoc on Earth. It kills a lot of peoples, and the government of Earth decide that it's a good thing to take volunteers from Earth and to follow another group of aliens, the good ones, and to form an alliance with the good side of aliens, of humans and aliens. I use aliens, but they're humans, you will see. It is a bit complicated at the beginning, but by reading, you will understand. So my issue with it was that we had the introduction for Colton, the protagonist of the book, and we have a little bit of a slice of life showing us that he is a pretty normal guy. He goes on college, and the first couple of chapters is about him going through his normal life with his family and his friends. And then the invasion happens, and everything changes, of course. I found that side a little bit annoying because it was at the same time too much and too little. I thought that it could have been used to show a little bit more of him as a character, as a person, his relationship with his family, how his life was, the kind of guy he was before the invasion. And then we had a lot of info dumps because after the invasion happens, the good guys, the good aliens, they have to explain a lot of things to Colton and to humanity as a whole to make them understand what all of this conflict is about. And then they ask for help from humanity to fight with them against the bad guys. All of that part is a little clunky for me, but the moment Colton goes with the good guys and he embarks on a spaceship and then goes to the capital planet for the good side of the aliens, everything changed. And the novel, it has a pretty major setting in a school setting, when Colton and the other humans have to learn to use that kind of space magic I was speaking about. And it completely changes. It becomes so much more enjoyable because we see Colton growing as a character. The author specifically explained me that he decided to make Colton more of a bland character because he wanted to show us his character development and he growing and becoming a leader. And it was very effective because he is a very nice guy, and I appreciate when the protagonist is a very nice guy. I am so fed up of grim dark and dark fantasy and stories when all the main cast is grey characters and horrible people that we are supposed to root for. So this was a very nice choice for me, and I enjoyed it very much. So we follow Colton during all of this school setting, the way he try and struggles actually really hard to use those special abilities and become part of an army, and then becoming a leader of a small fraction of that army. It is very interesting. It's very wholesome. I like the relationships between Colton and a bunch of guys that go from Earth that go with him, and the relationship that Galton have with the alien civilization, with the other humans that see humanity like something strange and a little bit dangerous too. I don't want to say much more about it because it is one of the most effective side of the novel, showing how even during a very dangerous conflict like this, humanity can still be divided, and we struggle as a species to find a common ground to fight against such a dangerous threat. It is very compelling, and the ending is mind-blowing. It was completely unexpected, and it made me extremely eager to read book 2. So, Mr. Wilson, if you're watching this video, just so you know, I need a digital arc for book 2. I actually expect it. So show me the rest of the story. I want to see what happens. And all of you, you should check out this book because it's very, very enjoyable. I read Lifelike by Jay Kristoff. It is a cyberpunk / post-apocalyptic retelling of Pinocchio in a way, but it is so much more than that. I have to say that I get what I expected from this book, but I was surprised too. It is very competently written. You see that Jay Kristoff is a very experienced, very skilled author. And this book was a success for me. We follow the perspective from Eve, which is a mechanic and a fighter too. Because in this world you'll see we have the aesthetic of Alita, Battle Angel Alita, if you know what I'm talking about. So at the beginning of the book she is going on an arena, going on a fight. She's a gambler, she's going to make money to help actually her grandfather, which is sick. So she needs money. Something happens and the fight goes very wrong. So she is in a very, very daring situation. And then she ends meeting a guy, which will be her love interest for the rest of the book. And she discovered something about her and about her past. Something was not exactly how she remembered. I like the fact that the book has a peculiar spin on the 3 laws of robotics by Isaac Asimov, and then it successfully incorporates flashback in a very poetic way, because we have another perspective from another girl from the past that was living a very secluded life in kind of a crystal tower in another place, in another section of the world building. And you see how this girl is remembering some very traumatic events in her life. And you begin pretty soon asking, why are we seeing those flashbacks / dream from that girl? Those moments are very, very beautifully written, and they have a very stark contrast with the prose of the actual regular chapters from the books, which are very funny, very witty. You actually have one of the side characters called Lemon Fresh. So it is that kind of a book that has a very particular kind of humor that it really worked for me. And I can imagine that some people will find it a little bit too much, but it was very funny for me. And so we have this stark contrast between those two perspectives, and you can figure out why they intertwine and the way they intertwine by the end of the book. But it was done very well, because we have several plot twists at the end of the book that kind of flip the story upside down and make you think, I was not right about all of my predictions. So it was very quick. Very nice, and the aesthetic is very on point with that mix of cyberpunk and post-apocalyptic. In a way, it's like mixing Battle Angel Alita with Mad Max and a little bit with Johnny Mnemonic and a little bit of The Matrix. So those are all pros for me, all wins, all huge wins, because that aesthetics, I love it so much. And the book, the physical book, is amazingly formatted. It is a pleasure to read. The actual experience to read the hardcover for that book was amazing. So I hope I'm going to break the curse and read the book too pretty soon, because I want to know how those bunch of very, very bad, very mean plot twist at the end, how they pay off. Of course, the book ends with a very painful cliffhanger, but I was expecting it, so I was prepared. It's a very good book. I enjoyed it very much. It is aimed toward a young adult target, so I'm very much not the intended target for that book, but I will say that even differently young audience can enjoy it. So I suggest you to give it a try. I read 2 more installments in the Dragon Tooth series. It is a comic book series that follows the stories from the Expanse after the end of season 6. I am very happy to say that this comic book keeps being absolutely amazing. It is very deep. It makes a very good job in establishing a new status quo without betraying what happened at the end of season 6. And you'll see that in a pretty unexpected way, it goes back and puts on the screen again a few characters, especially a villain from season 2 and 3, that we thought that we were not going to see again, because those character arcs were ended in a pretty definitive way, so I didn't expect that. But they're incorporated in the story in a very reasonable way, in a very smart way. So I have to say that Mr. Diggle, he's doing an amazing job in writing this story. And I know that if we ever have new seasons for this show, it will be so far in the future that the characters will be very different, and the status quo again will be very different. Because that's actually what happens in the book. There is a huge 30 years maybe a gap between book 6 and book 7, and I have been wondering what happened in those 30 years, because they give brief mentions about what happened, but they don't go that deep in the actual storylines of those years. And this is what happened in those years, and it is very good. It is very emotionally charged. It is very smart, and the villain that they set up, the actual group and the leader of that group, they have very interesting motivation. They are very deep, very layered, and the books are a joy to read. If anything, I would love for them to be longer, to stay with those characters for much longer. And in a way, this is a testament to the very good job they're doing. So they're very good. You should give them a try. You should absolutely read the books, give a look at the TV show, and read those comics too. And lastly, I've read Arthur's Bane, which is the first episode on a serialized novel based on Arthurian mythology called The Broken Kingdom. And so this novel it's actually more of a short story. I think there will be 5 in total. It has a weird structure. I don't think I have ever read this kind of a serialized story in English. I've read something like that in Italian, but not in English. So the story is 72 pages, so it is pretty short, and you can see that it is just one small part of a bigger story. But it has a nice and a very interesting spin on the Arthurian mythology. When the novel starts, Arthur is around 20 years old, so he's already been trained. He's actually a very capable fighter, and he is escorting his half-sister Morgane. Then she's been given as a wife to a king from another kingdom, because the general setting of the story is that King Uther is trying to unify all Britain and giving peace to the land by unifying all the other small kingdoms that are constantly at fight between each other. It is interesting to see how the author raises a lot of questions because in the prologue we have another perspective, and I'm not going to spoil it because it is very interesting and very creepy and very gruesome. But that 72 pages short story goes very quick and very fast, and there is a good amount of action even in that very short page count. I will say that it reads more like historical fiction than fantasy, and that is because the author, it is actually a very, very successful historical fiction novel. So you can see that his background with that kind of fiction influences the way he tells fantasy stories. So we can call it a very low fantasy, at least in that 72 pages. I don't know how it will be developed in the rest of the story, if it becomes more epic in scope. So it was pretty interesting. I will say that the balance between action and character development, I think it goes more toward atmosphere and action, because that's what stays with you at the end of the reading. I would have liked to have a little bit more of a focus on the character of Arthur, because even those short 72 pages are split between many perspectives. We have Arthur, we have Morgane, we have Igraine, which is Arthur's mother, and then we have Merlin too. And it is interesting the way Merlin is described here, because he is very different from the standard idea we have of the old grump mage that he's hidden in a cave with a cauldron and doing weird old magics. Here Merlin is far younger, very rich and very powerful. There is a line when he says that if he wants, should he be bothered, he will be able to end the conflict in a matter of seconds, because he will be able to pay for armies and destroy everything else and conquer the whole country in a matter of days. So it is a curious spin on a very established character that all of us in some way know. So I'm interested to see how the rest of the story goes. Every part of this serialized novel is extremely cheap. It's just something like 99 cents. In Italy it was something like 89 cents of euros, and it is on Kindle Unlimited too, so it is very low effort and you should give it a try too. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you for staying with me till the end of the video. I'm still in the process of reading World of Radiance. It is so incredibly long, and I'm so envious of all the people that were able to finish that book in a couple of days. How do you do it? But I'm enjoying it so much, so very much more than book 1. I finally read that so famous arena fight, and now I'm completely on board with Kaladin too. Remember that if you like science fiction and fantasy books, this channel is the perfect place for you. And also remember that every interaction counts. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post something new. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.